Hi, my name is Mike Montgomery, and today I'm going to be showing you how you can build your very own mid-century modern sofa on Modern Builds. Now, before I get a ton of questions about the cushions and the fabric themselves, all I did was Google upholstery shop OKC, because I'm from Oklahoma City, and all I did was go to the shop, that was my first result, and give them the dimensions of the cushions I needed. Everything else they did. I chose a relatively firm cushion and this really nice fabric, and they had everything ready in about 4 days for me to pick up. Now, I do recommend getting the cushions first, that way you can build the platform to fit it. That's what I did. And if you want all of my dimensions and all of that extra information, my written article is going to have all that, so make sure you check that out if you're going to build this project. So I started by measuring my 6 2x6s that I'm using for my platform, and I measured them about 3 or 4 inches oversized. That way I could cut them to my actual length when they were all glued up and square. After that, I ran all of the boards through the table saw to knock off one of the rounded edges. Then I moved my fence to about 5 1/4 inches and cut them to my actual width. Once they were done, I marked lines for my biscuit joiner. Then I cut biscuits. And one trick that I did for the first time on this project was keeping my hand on the top plate of the biscuit joiner. That helped keep everything square and lined up. And after I did a quick test fit, it was time to glue everything up. Now, because these boards are construction lumber, they're not the straightest in the world, and as you can see, my edge isn't perfect, so what I did was use an extra bar clamp and clamp all of the edges of the boards to it. It helped keep everything a lot squarer. Then I filled in all my cracks, and any of the things that I wanted to kind of show off, I used epoxy. And because pine is a really soft wood, I was able to flatten everything with a belt sander. I didn't even need to use the planer. And after a few hours of sanding, I was able to square up my sides. I used a giant T-square to mark my cut line, and then I marked inside of that for my edge guide. And then I just ran a circular saw across it. And this is why I said wait to build your platform until you get your cushions made, because you can make it a really clean fit and make sure it fits the cushion perfectly. And so now with the platform done, I needed to work on the back support. And I started by cutting 2 perfectly square pieces out of the leftover 2x6s. Now these are the exact same length and width as my vertical supports are going to be, so that they blend in really well to the platform. And basically what they're there for is to add a little bit more meat for the back support to grab into. That way, it's sturdy. Then I cut my horizontal back support, and then I'd use 2 leftover pieces for my vertical back supports. I ran them all through the planer because one of the boards had a bit of a cup to them. I also wanted to take off the rounded corners. Now I am cutting my first half lap joints ever for this project. So I'm no expert, but this is simple joint. Basically all you do is you hollow out half of one board, and then you do the same on another board so that they fit together. So basically here I'm marking my outlines of where the boards are going to go on my horizontal support, and since I'm cutting out my notches in the horizontal piece with a circular saw, I'm using the piece I just cut on the table saw to set the depth. So after I did a test piece, all I did was use a square to mark my 2 outside lines, and then I just did pass after pass and hollowed out that center. And because it's not super clean, I was able to go back in with a chisel and clean it up. By no means is this the prettiest joint in the world, but it worked. And it was actually really square. Next, I flipped my platform upside down and I was able to glue and clamp my back support in place while I cut in my dowels. I measured in 1 inch from each edge, and then I centered each of the dowels on each of my 2 boards. Now, I've never joined 2 boards together with dowels before, and I didn't have any kind of jig. Basically, all I did was make sure I drilled as straight of a hole as I could, put the dowel in, and then basically cut it off. It worked out really great, and the back support is crazy strong. I put 2 extra ones in as well on that extra support plate to make sure it didn't come out as well. And you saw the masking tape line on my drill bit to make sure I didn't go all the way through my platform. Then I sanded it all the way up to 220, and for legs, I'm using these. They're technically table legs, and the link form will be in the written article, but they use this mounting plate to attach to basically anything. And now because this isn't a table and it's going to be holding a lot more weight, I went ahead and used different screws. These are a lot longer than what they come with, and they've got a lot more of an aggressive bite to them. Hopefully, this will make them strong enough. And once I had them in, I could basically try it out. Okay, so these legs were not quite as stable as I was hoping, and I think that's for two reasons. Number one, I got a 12-inch set. I should have gotten 8 inches. To start, 8 inches would be a better platform height than the 12-inch legs are providing. Plus, the extra height, I think, is adding a little extra wobble. Now, the real issue with them is that they have a self-leveling, pivoting bottom, and that's what's doing the moving. It's not the legs themselves. So, I'm thinking maybe I can just cut the legs off at a certain length, and they'll quit moving. So that's what I'm gonna try now. So I set up a stop block to make sure they were all the same length, and I used wedges to make sure that I kept the bottom square to the top. And after I cut them all, I put them back on and tried again. Alright, so this worked even better than I was expecting. Now, when the legs didn't work at first and I had the whole idea of cutting them, I really wasn't sure that it was going to work, and honestly, I kind of thought I was going to have to scrap the whole idea of using these legs, but they work awesome, and they look so much better. Having them without the metal bottom actually gives them a much more custom look and makes it look a lot more like an expensive piece. Now, I do plan on putting a 5th leg in the back in the center. I think that's going to make the whole thing a little stronger and take away the tiny bit of wobble that it does have, but this sofa is going to be sitting against the wall anyways, so I don't think it's going to be any issue. Now, obviously, if you have a lathe or if you have access to a lathe and can turn your own legs and epoxy them in and all that stuff, it's going to be stronger than this, but this is a crazy good option if you don't have all that and you want to make a couch. And now with the legs sorted out, it was time to put the finish on. I chose this Danish oil from Watco that actually has a built-in dark walnut stain, which is super cool because Danish oil soaks into the wood, unlike other products that sit on top. That way, whenever you touch the wood, you're actually feeling wood, not some coating over the top of it. And with that, all I had to do was put my cushions on, and I was done. And one thing I think is really cool about this project is if you take off the back cushions, it turns into an almost twin-size sleeper sofa. So if you have guests, they have somewhere to sleep. So that's really all there is to it. Now, this project was something that I wanted to do for a long time. I bought these cushions like 4 or 5 months ago, but I just really haven't built up the nerve to build the project. And I don't know why, because it wasn't as hard as I was expecting. This is a really cool learning experience because I did my first half-lap joints as well as doweled instead of used hardware for the first time. And if this is your first time on my channel, I want to say welcome and subscribe because I put out a new project video every single week and you'll definitely want to stick around and check those out. If you like this video, hit that thumbs up. That lets me know what you guys are into and what you might want to see next. If you've got any questions, leave those in the comments. I try to get to all of those. And if you want to see what I'm doing throughout the week, follow me on Instagram. That is my social media of choice and where I definitely post most often. And if you're going to build this for yourself, don't forget to check out my written article on my website. It's going to have a lot of extra information as well as all the dimension specs, and you'll definitely want to check that out. Thanks a lot, guys, for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you next week on Modern Builds.